So have you heard about the story about Elijah and the prophet of Baal? This happened in 1 Kings chapter 18. It was when the children of Israel started worshiping idols, and then God sent Elijah to them, and then Elijah gave them like this test to prove who was the true God. And then Elijah said they should offer up an offering to their gods. Elijah was going to offer up an offering to God, and the prophet of Baal were going to offer up an offering to their idols. And then Elijah said that whosoever, like, they had to raise an altar. So whosoever sacrifice was swallowed up by like fire, let him be their God. That was where this saying came from. The God that answered by fire, let him be their God. And so this prophet of Baal, they raised their own offering. They created their altar, placed their sacrifice on the altar. And then Elijah did the same. He raised his own altar, put the sacrifice on the altar and all. And then Elijah said the prophet of Baal should go first. The prophet of Baal were about 450 prophets. And then they went first. They started crying to their God. They started singing. I don't know if they sang, sorry, but they started doing everything they could do to call on this their God. And then they started crying. It got to a point that they slit their wrists, like out of frustration, because they kept on calling upon this God, this idol that didn't really exist, and they were calling on him. They were crying. They were doing all they could do to get his attention. And you know, the funny part of this story is that Elijah started to tease them. He started telling them, oh, maybe he's asleep, maybe you should scream louder, you should raise your voice and scream louder, maybe he can't hear you. And the prophet of Baal, they began to scream, they began to call on this their God. And Elijah began to say, oh, maybe he traveled. Oh, it's true, maybe he traveled. Maybe you should call him more. Maybe he has traveled. He began to give them all these different scenarios. That was so funny. And then this prophet of Baal, they kept on calling. They were so frustrated. I think he lasted for about a day. I'm not really sure. But like, it took a while. Elijah gave them like ample opportunity to call on this their God. Nothing happened. And then when it was time for Elijah to do his own, he said, please, he asked them to drench his own altar with water. You know that water and fire does not, like, when somewhere is wet, it takes a longer time for that particular item to catch fire. So Elijah wanted to prove to them that it's not about giving me an opportunity for this altar to catch fire. I want to prove to you that my God is the consuming fire. So he told them that they should drench his own altar with water. They should drench everything on that altar till it was dripping wet. And they did that. They drenched everything on that altar. And then Elijah called on God. And then the consuming fire showed up, and he swallowed up everything that was on that altar. It was as if the altar became dry. He took everything, the water, everything. He swallowed everything up to prove that he is the consuming fire. I want to have the kind of faith that Elijah had. I want to have the kind of deep conviction, deep assurance of who God is that Elijah had, that he was not even moved. That is the kind of faith you should aspire to have as a Christian. Yeah.